Hello and welcome to the Ed Talks About podcast. I would like to inform you that what you're about to listen to are our views and comments from the host and guests. They only reflect their view and not the community as a whole. I hope you enjoy the podcast. And Eddie, play that witty banter section.
Oh God,
Oh.
I just can't imagine you as a mistress. That's all.
No, it wouldn't work. I'd just people annoy me too much, to be honest.
Yeah, but
they'd be like, say something sexy, and I'd be like, oh, fuck off out of my space.
But the point of a mistress is that I don't think you can. I think you could do whatever you want. You don't have to like them. You just get paid to do things to them. I'm just saying.
No, see, every so often I get random spam accounts in my message requests that are like, hey, if I gave you $1,000 right now, what would you do? Or, oh, are you looking for a sugar daddy? And I'm like, could you just send me the money, then leave me alone?
And then I'll block you.
Yeah. Tell you what, handsome, you send me $1,000 and I'll block you instantly afterwards.
All the doll hairs. Hello everybody, this is Ed Talk About Podcast, a weekly podcast talking about cosplay, Comic-Con, and everything else. I'm your host Eddie. This week we are talking about the theatre cosplayers. Who would dare do a theatre cosplay? What's the point of doing a theatre cosplay? Does it matter? Should we matter? Do you know what? What's the point of doing
Does Eddie matter?
Does Eddie matter? Exactly. Hey, whoa, I'm not a theatre cosplay. Whoa, let's not go down there. Joining us on the podcast is Beth from What's Her Name Cosplay and Matthew of Journey to the Lair. Welcome to you both.
Hello.
Oh, dear Lord. Yes. Listeners to the podcast who know who Beth is. I don't know why she keeps
poor fuckers.
I don't know why she keeps coming back. I don't know why I keep inviting her. I don't know.
I think it's because you're desperate, to be honest.
To be fair, yeah, I'm always desperate, but that's the beginning banter section we were talking about. How you were being a mistress and all that. How was that second job? How was that second job going as a mistress?
Yeah, it's great. I take their money and then I block them, and they really get off on that.
The humiliation side of it all.
Yeah, they really enjoy the humiliation of not being able to contact me again.
I bet there's some people who are into that going, oh, I just want to be ignored by people. Oh, yeah. Just ignore me, mistress. Just ignore me. Oh, wait, they're not replying. Oh, it's working too well. Too well. Oh, dear Lord. Anyway.
Boy.
I know. Oh, geez. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing both well. I always do a 7-day checkups. So, Beth, how have you been the last 7 days?
Oh God, busy. I pretty much live at work at the moment. So
is that how you're avoiding the cost of living crisis at the moment?
God, yeah, pretty much. Topical to the podcast. I work in a theatre, and we just went through cast change, which means bunch of actors leave, bunch of actors join. And depending on how many leave and join, we have to rehearse, retake the show, have opening night, and then after that it's all rehearsals for understudies to those characters, and we lost a huge chunk of our cast. So for the foreseeable, I'm doing a lot of rehearsals around the actual shows. So I think last week I did about 50 hours, and the week before I was in there for about 60. So I get up, I go to the theatre, and I come home, and I go to bed, and I get up and I go to the theatre. But
am I understanding you're actually earning a living now?
Yeah.
You actually work for it. You actually the work you're doing equates to the money you earn.
Pretty much. In this economy, it's shocking. Especially in theatre, sometimes they don't want to fucking pay you enough. But
who the fuck hired you?
I'm lucky with where the hell I am. Well, actually, another cosplayer that I know.
Oh my God!
Hired me to this one. But, well, she's my line manager. It's fine. She puts up on my bullshit on a semi-regular basis.
I say, tell me her name. I'll get you fired, okay? Easily sorted. Easily sorted. Matthew, how about you? How's the last 7 days for you?
So my partner decided very recently that he wanted a new costume to wear for Musical Con. So we have been frantically, considering Musical Con is in 3 weeks, we have been frantically sourcing fabric and trims and material and everything we need, alongside me teaching him how to sew so he can make the majority of the costume himself. So it's been a frantic week.
Wow, it's a good thing.
Chaos.
Chaos. It's a good thing both of you are on the podcast to talk about theatre cosplay. It's like I planned this. Before we get into the podcast, I usually do how do I know the cosplayer? First time appearing on the podcast, I would introduce them by how do I know this cosplayer? Actually, I don't know Matthew at all. This is all Beth's fault. So rather than me saying how I met Matthew, Beth, how do you know Matthew? How did you two first meet?
And then I'll tell you if she's being honest about it.
So we met coming up on 2 years ago now, I want to say.
Yeah.
It was October MCM 2021, and it was... Oh no, was it the May? Am I talking about my bumhole? Was that at the Crown? Because you were in the Masquerade. Maybe it was like a year and a half ago. It was.
I think it was the May one. It was the Crown Championship.
It was the May one because Matthew was backstage at MCM at the Masquerade, and I was entering the Crown qualifiers, which was going on after the Masquerade. And they walked our group backstage, and I just saw Matthew dressed as Red Death from Phantom of the Opera, and I was dressed as Anne Boleyn from Six. So we're both in theatre cosplays, and it was very much a point and scream kind of moment. And we were both just like, oh my god, another theatre cosplayer, this is so rare, and had like a moment of like, you look amazing, oh my god. And then after we'd both come off stage, we were like chatting away at the side of the stage, and then we just keep bumping into each other.
And then both lamenting about how much pain we were in with our various costumes.
We were like, I'm so uncomfortable, how about you? And it was like, yeah, my feet are killing me.
Sorry, all I've got in my head is like the Spider-Man pointing meme.
It was pretty much that, to be fair.
Pretty much that, yeah.
And
oh my
lots of,
god,
like,
you're in
hand
theatre,
waving.
I'm in theatre.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. And then I heard Matthew's entry because he went on before me with the Masquerade, and I heard him, like, because like MCM have weird rules now about what music you're allowed to use and what you're not allowed to use. And for the Masquerade, you were allowed to use like your own music, so Matthew could use music from Phantom of the Opera. So I heard him doing like Masquerade, or is it Miss Yours? I did
the Red Death entrance when he comes down the stairs.
Yeah, it was like that from like the top of Act 2. And I was just backstage losing my fucking mind because I was like, oh my god, I wish I was watching this. But then for Crown, we weren't allowed to use our own music, so I couldn't use anything from Six. And I'd had to kind of record my own audio-ish, like in the style of the character. And then we were lamenting afterwards. We were like, why the hell is it one rule for one competition, and then the next competition 5 minutes later it's a completely different rule?
Let's not go down that route.
Let's not go down the MCM route.
Yes,
we can be there a while.
This is supposed to be meant to be an hour. By the way, I do try to aim for this podcast to be an hour, not like an hour and a half, which some podcasts are turning into.
It's probably you that won't stop talking, Eddie.
Shut up! Shut your mouth! Wash your mouth out, son.
I'm being bullied. I'm being bullied on the internet.
by a male photographer, of course. Yeah.
Classic. Where's the classic post? Be aware.
Oh, jeez. See, Matthew, this is what I mean. She's the one that causes trouble, not me. I'm the innocent party here.
Uh-huh.
Well, but yet you still invite her back. So I mean,
he is a glutton for punishment. It's true.
Yeah,
it's the humiliation you love, Eddie, isn't it? That's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't want to confirm or deny. No, wait. I don't want to confirm. Wait, no. Anyway,
Eddie's now losing his own podcast.
To be fair, the last 10 of 20 episodes, I've been losing my podcast to people, just left, right, and centre. Just everyone. Hey, why am I talking about this? No, back on track here. Back on track. Anyway, I was saying, Matthew, thank you for like joining me on the podcast. Thank you for like helping out and all that. And yeah, I really appreciate your time here. So,
no, it's good to be here.
Oh, you're nicer to him than you are to me.
Well, yeah. He
doesn't know me.
That's true.
All right. Okay, so let's get on with the podcast. This might be a really stupid, dumb question because you've already admitted it out loud, but I just want to follow a format that I've got questions here. And I'll start with Beth on this question. How much do you like the theatre scene? I mean, are we talking about a little? Mediocre? What?
It depends if you're talking about it as an industry, because I can talk from the perspective of someone that works in the industry or like a fan. And as a fan, I generally absolutely love it. Like, I've been going to the theatre for years. I'm very lucky that like I've lived in London now for like 11 years. So living in London that amount of time and having the access to like the West End, and they do like affordable theatre tickets. Having that access meant like I was very, very fortunate once I moved up here in my 20s to go to the theatre a lot. I'm a big fan of musicals, but I also go to like, I did a lot of plays, Shakespeare, all that sort of thing. Now I work in the industry, I don't see other shows as often, just because I'm working 8 shows a week and a lot of other shows kind of line up to the same schedule. And I do still enjoy it. I mean, as with like any kind of industry, like you work in or you enjoy, there's some people that make it fantastic and there's some people that make you want to hit your head off a brick wall. But like overall it's fun, and like meeting other musical theatre cosplays is great, because it's like you'll always find when you're into like bigger forms of media like television or video games, there's always going to be loads of fans of that, but connecting with like other fans of shows is a little bit not harder, it's a little bit different. But with like, you know, theatre becoming a little bit more accessible, pro shots being released, or even like movies of musicals, that makes it like a little bit easier and introduces more people. I feel like I've gone wildly off topic. I am sorry. My train of thought is actually like a rail replacement bus, but it's fine. So yeah, like it is good fun. As with any fandom, it's got like ups and downs, and you'll get people that are a little bit rude, but you get people that are wonderful. So yeah, it's overall it's good fun.
Good to know. Good to know.
gives you like a fucking 5-page essay off of one question. Sorry,
I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Bethan. Bethan. Matthew, what about yourself? How much do you like the theatre? I mean, you know, either are you involved in the industry, or are you just like going to see the theatre?
So not anymore. When I was younger, I was a dancer. I was a performer, so I used to perform on stage. So I have that experience of being in front of an audience. I don't do that now, but like Bethan said, the great thing about living in London is just having all of it accessible. And, you know, with the amount of apps that are out there that you can get day tickets and cheaper tickets and ticket booths and that sort of thing. And when you live in London and it's just, you know, you can be in town within half an hour or whatever, it makes it so much easier. And when I see some people online who going to London to see a show is such a big deal, because they've got to travel from way out of town and they've got to book a hotel, and it just seems like such a monumental effort to do it. Worth it, but just such a bit more of a big deal. But yeah, I absolutely adore it. But yeah, and again, as Bethan says, there are the people that make it an incredible experience, but there are also the people that we tend to avoid. But you know, that's the same across any community. You know, not just in cosplay. There will be fan people of films, of pop stars, of theatre. There are going to be the people that you connect with because you have that similar passion for something, but there are going to be other fans there that you just stay away from because they make it unenjoyable or hard work, and it shouldn't be that.
No, I totally get that. Okay, that's cool. I just want to hear, just know your backgrounds in the genre. If it's something that you really are into, or just something as a pass by. But it's good to know that you're both got such a more than a keen interest in the theatres from different type of backgrounds, really. So. I'm making a huge assumption here, which if I've that you're both cosplayers, and yeah, you've done multiple cosplays from multi mediums. So, what is the attraction for you about cosplaying from a theatre show?
So I think for me, because my main theatre cosplays is from Phantom of the Opera, and I think for me, because Phantom is just so opulent, all of the costumes, the set design, everything about it is just so over the top and detailed and beautiful, and I love that about it. The film of Phantom of the Opera, I just don't. It's a bit of a sore subject among the fans because people have their own opinions about the movie, but I just don't feel the costumes in the movie are anywhere near as fantastic and beautiful as they are in a stage show. And I just think the amount of work that goes into them for some of those costumes that are seen so briefly or from such a distance that you don't even appreciate some of that detail unless you're sat in the front row. I think that's what it is. It's the amount of work and detail in those costumes that just makes them a little bit different as well. There are certain cosplays that lots of people do. You can always tell when there's a new movie come out. If there's a new Thor movie or there's a new Spider-Man movie, a lot of people will do those cosplays, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I like to do something a little bit different. And even with the Phantom of the Opera cosplay, I don't tend to wear the standard Phantom costume. I wear these other costumes that other people don't tend to wear very often, just so it's something a bit different.
It's very interesting to hear that, and we'll talk about like the level of detail you put into a theatre cosplay compared to maybe other, shall we say, I was going to say casual cosplay, other mediums of cosplay, shall we say, like from TV, film, anime, and things like that. Beth, what about yourself? What attracts you to like doing a theatre cosplay?
Kind of very much for me like the same as it would for like any other medium, is that like I look at the costume or the character and I think, wow, that's really cool, and I want to make it. And it's funny, before I made my Anne Boleyn cosplay, which is now what a lot of people know me for, I hadn't actually seen Six yet. I'd listened to the soundtrack, but it was locked down. I hadn't seen the show, and I was going, oh, I really want a project that's like really challenging. I'd never worked with those fabrics before, so that's how I picked it up. And I didn't see Six until, I want to say, like the July, like 2021. And I'd finished Berlin like in the March, April, kind of before that. But I knew kind of from watching videos, but it's funny because after seeing the show, she's not necessarily my favourite character. She's not my favourite queen as such. I'd probably say that's more Catherine Parr. But I really love her costume.
She's not mine either, that one.
Yeah, it's like in terms of like my favourite versus what I actually made, I find that quite interesting. And I very much like still wear her, and I actually don't think I want to have to deal with making Catherine Parr's trousers. But yeah, it's funny kind of what you're drawn to. But yeah, very much just kind of the same as any other medium for me, really. But then it's also the extra excitement of, this is a show you're so excited about, and then to find people who know what that's from and who are also excited is just a little bit less common than like someone else who's into like, Doctor Who or Marvel. So it gives you that extra like niche to bond over.
I mean, it's. I was going to say, because actually, it does swiftly move into the next question I've got on my list, which is about: do people recognise your cosplays? Is it something that people go, "Oh my god, I know that's from Six or from Phantom of the Opera"? Oh my god, I want to talk about the theatre show. Or is it? Do people look at you going, "I love it, but where is it from?" I mean, Matthew, I'm assuming your Phantom of the Opera is so like in the zeitgeist of people's mind. If they see the half the mask, the black cloak type of thing, people know it's from Phantom of the Opera. But have anyone mistaken you for something else?
Yeah, so that's the thing. So the classic Phantom look, the white shirt, the white bow tie, the tailcoat, the half white mask, generally everybody knows that. And I have worn that to MCM, and I have people following me around screaming Phantom of the Opera behind you. And people get that. But when I wear my Red Death costume, the big red one with a skull mask, because he wears it so briefly in the show, and it's not the half white mask, a lot of people don't get that straight away. Especially at MCM, a lot of people think I'm from Pirates of the Caribbean because I have a hat with loads of feathers in it. But there will be the people who are the musical theatre people, or who they really like the show, who will see you backstage and scream. So there are the people, but as I say, it's a much more niched crowd that recognise the more obscure costumes.
Does that annoy you when people don't recognise your cosplay?
No, I accept it because I appreciate how obscure it is, and that it's not the regular main costume. So it doesn't bother me. But then, obviously, when you have other events like Musical Con, which is purely based around musical theatre, if I walk in there in my Red Death, I can guarantee nearly everybody in there will know exactly who I am. And if they don't, then they shouldn't be at that event.
Very true, very true. Beth, same question to you, because you've worn your Anne Boleyn. I'm trying to think of any other theatre stuff you've worn, but that's the only one that comes into my mind.
I had a surprising amount of people recognizing my Berlin, to be honest, at MCM, but I think it also gotten. It's a show that's quite popular among a lot of like younger people, especially like kind of teenage girls or girls in their early 20s type thing. So they were the ones that recognized me kind of the most, which was like exciting. But hilariously, I did have some people. Someone asked if I was from Street Fighter, and I've not like done Street Fighter, but I was very kind of confused as to why because it doesn't kind of strike me as the same type of costume. Someone thought I was from Street Fighter, which is quite funny. Someone thought I was from like a cyberpunk type of game, and kind of going, "Oh, it's from theatre." But like Berlin is one of the costumes that people feel like most entitled to touch, and I appreciate it's because it's like PVC and like studs. But the amount of people have come up to me at cons, and these are grown ass adults, these are like women older than me. They've been like, "Oh, you've really gotten the shape right in that," and it's like boing 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 on the skirt, and I'm like, "Excuse me, that is attached." Like, please don't do that. But what was really interesting is because I wore her to the first musical con last year, and I was lucky enough, like I had a whole bunch of friends that we had almost like all the queens. I think because musical con, like a lot of the theatre fans who are there, because it's a lot of it is for like meeting your favourite actors and doing workshops. There were a decent amount of cosplayers, but I'm going to say it was like 90% Heathers, which I've also done, so like no shade there, and I've probably been far more comfortable as Heather Chandler than wearing Berlin. But it was very like, there was a lot of people that were like maybe not as familiar with cosplay to that much, were very much like, "Oh my god, like did you buy those costumes? Did you rent them? Did you hire them?" And it's like, "No, we made these ourselves." And going from like the crowds of MCM where it's like, yeah, everyone, knows cosplay and makes or buys extravagant costumes, to a crowd that wasn't as familiar with it, kind of reminded me that like what we do is not unique, but it's very like, oh, you just looked at that really elaborate costume from theatre and decided to recreate it yourself. So yeah.
Well, I was going to say, because again, like, it's like you are reading my question list. It leads into my next
I'm not
question.
actually. I'm just very good at talking.
Well, it leads to my next question, which is basically, why make it then? Because I can imagine, like, of all the forms of media out there, so like I said, film, TV, anime, science fiction, fantasy, and all, literally all the genres. I can't imagine theatre's quite high up in people's minds, in the, people's thoughts of all the time. It's not the highest thing. And yes, if you're in London, you can get into the theatre. But like you said, if you're not in the London area, theatre work is pretty, it's quite a unique thing. I hate to say it in this phrase, a very privileged thing to go to. So I know at one level, it's because you love it. You want to see that costume, so you want to make it. But also, why do it? Because if you know that not people are going to see it or recognize it, what's the point? And I know, like I said, you're doing it for yourself mainly, but is there another reason for it?
I think for me, it's very like, when people recognize it, it almost means you've got like an immediate bond, because it is that niche comparatively to anything else. So like when I saw Matthew in his Red Death, I was immediately just like, "Oh my god, you're someone I'm probably going to get on with like really well," because there is that level to it. I mean, it's like a lot of stuff is more accessible now than it used to be, especially with like cast recordings, pro shots of shows, or even just like people filming it on their phones in the theatre and uploading it. So more people kind of recognise the media it's from. But for me, it's like, it is nice when people recognise your costume, don't get me wrong, but it's not the sole kind of reason I do it and I cosplay any longer. I think because I know a lot of people are very much like, I will only cosplay from popular media and what's the most popular at this point, and I can't cosplay anything that's over like a few years old. It has to be current trends, which is like fine, you do you, honey. But I don't really do that anymore. I cosplay what makes me happy. So if it's something that's old or niche, then it's fine. And then like I said, it does mean that when someone does recognize it, it's that bit more
It's the
special.
challenge as well, isn't it? It's the
Yeah.
seeing something and saying, I want to do that. I know when I first set my mind to do Red Death, and I sent pictures of it to my best mate in Ireland, and he owns his own company making dresses for Irish dancers in Northern Ireland. So what he does all day long is dressmaking, and quite incredibly. And I sent him pictures of the Red Death and said, "Oh, I want to do this," and he just laughed down the phone at me. You're crazy. He went, don't. He said, you'll just drive yourself crazy. He said, and I said, I want to do it. He said, I said, I'll start with the hat. If I can do the hat, then maybe I can do the rest of it. And it was just a challenge. I just thought, I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to get it done, complete it, and be able to say, I did it. And it was like a personal challenge. So that's another reason for doing it.
Okay, fair
Yeah,
enough.
absolutely. That's what Berlin was for me. I set myself a personal challenge, and initially it was like it was a costume on my wish list. I was like, yeah, I'll do this at some point, but I don't know when I'll have the time to sink into it because it was learning to work with a whole new set of materials. And then lockdown hit and COVID hit, and all of a sudden I have this free time. So
I actually
seems
remember
like
you
the
making that costume during some podcast records.
Yeah, and thing is, you know how much I hate myself is that I'm going to remake the skirt, so I already have another roll of green PVC behind me right now because I don't like how the skirt sits at the moment, and I'm not going to have time to do it before Musical Con. I've already accepted that because I'm so insanely busy with work. So the current version of this costume will get one more outing, and then the next time she's out, it'll be version 2.5, version 3. I don't know. I hate myself.
If it helps, Beth, I hate you as well. So
Oh, good.
swings and
Right.
roundabouts type of thing.
Right, my parents probably do as well.
Do you ever get to that point there, Bethan? Because I look at parts of my Red Death and I just think, oh, I could. Now my skills have improved.
Yeah.
And I've made other things. I just think, oh, I could do that better. But the thought of taking it apart to maybe improve something or do it again it just makes my toes curl. I just don't want to do it. Partly because I'm worried that if I take it apart, I might ruin it and it just won't look as good again. So yeah, there are parts I want to redo, but then I'm just not going to touch it.
There's parts for sure like on Berlin where I'm like, oh, I want to fix the shoulders, like the kind of the puffs coming off of that, and I look at it and I'm like, it took me like an hour per shoulder to like saddle stitch it all on by hand, and obviously it's PVC, so when I take it apart, there's gonna be holes. So
Yeah,
it's either like, oh, do I remake the whole bodice? And I'm like, I don't want to do that again. So I'm just gonna keep adding like improvements where I can, and it's funny because then I find like now more people are doing it than had done that costume when I made it. So I'm seeing other people do it, and I'm like, I fall into that trap of like, oh, theirs looks so much better than mine. Oh, but what if I like redid it? And I'm like, no, bitch, like take a break. Stop doing that to yourself. Like everyone is having fun with their costumes. But then I fall into that little almost perfectionist kind of trap of like, but I could do this better. It's fine. It wouldn't be that bad, would it? Like reader, it would be that bad. Oh, you just have to be a sucker for punishment. I know.
Oh, Beth, you only have yourself to blame, and as long as you recognise that's all that matters.
Oh, honestly. Also, like as a random, I'm going to be cheeky and sneak in my own question here to Matthew. Do you find that obviously you've got Red Death, absolutely iconic, and that's what you're known for?
Mm.
Are you happy with that, or do you find bits where you're like, oh, I wish people would say this other costume of mine is their favourite, or I wish that they'd recognise the work I put into this costume instead, like your Phantom's like Chinese robe.
Chinese
Or
robe.
are you happy just like accepting that everyone will just know you for Red Death?
I'm kind of happy with it. Yeah, because I know how much work went into it. It was eight months of crying over a sewing machine and a hot glue gun and to get it done. So I know how much work into it. So I'm perfectly happy with people recognizing it. The frustrating thing was at MusicalCon because the day I wore my Chinese Red Death, my fiance, he went as brown paper packages tied up with string. So
Did he get more attention then?
he got more attention than me. So I am wearing a gorgeous Chinese robe made of all these silks and fabrics that I had to order from China and wait for them to be shipped over, and brocades and trims and all this gorgeous material. And he was wearing 2 cardboard boxes which were covered with cutouts of raindrops and roses and whiskers on kittens, and all tied up with brown paper and string. And everyone was telling him how fabulous he looked while I was stood next to him. And you just think, what the hell? What about me? I look amazing. But his was so...
That is the sod's law of cosplay, 100%.
But his costume was just so clever. There were so many people that just kind of stood there looking at him going, what are you? Oh my God. And then they clicked as to what it was, and then started singing my favorite things from this kind of music. But there are some great photos of him there where he's just, because he had no arms outside of his box either, and if he ducked his head down, it was just this pile of cardboard boxes. It was very funny wandering around with him.
I have no idea what's going on, so I'm just going to keep on going.
We just hijacked the podcast slightly.
I'm used to that, like I said. I'm used to that, people just hijacking my podcast. Oh, dear Lord. It's quite interesting to hear you talking about the love you have for theatre cosplays. It sounds like it's as much as TV, film, and all that. Obviously, I've spoken to a lot of cosplayers about this, and they said, "Oh, I get reference photos from here and there and there." And I just want to know: do you get as much, reference photos from theatre stage shows than you would from any other media, or is it actually? Because it's quite limited, like I'm assuming on stage you have limited costume changes. You want to keep that costume change as minimum as possible. Is it easier to then pick the one costume you want to wear and then find references photos for? Like TV shows, you could have a rolling, unlimited number of costumes. Like Doctor Who, I know itself has that iconic. The Doctor him or herself has that iconic look from Doctor to Doctor to Doctor. And other shows have similar formats, but in a sense, that could be wide-ranging. Of people can put their own take on it. They don't have to get it too similar to it. But do you feel like you're forced to kind of? I know it's coming up later, this question, but no, let's stick to. Is it easy to find the reference photos first? I'll start with Matt.
So it depends on the costumes. If you're going to go, like, obviously, if I was speaking from Phantom of the Opera, if you're going to go with his classic look. That is everywhere. Everyone knows what that looks like, the tailcoat and the white bow tie and the mask. And you can find lots of pictures of that. The other costumes he doesn't wear as much, the Red Death costume, the Chinese robe costume that he wears for one scene as well. Trying to find good quality photographs of that is a nightmare. And on top of that, whenever a new actor comes in to take on the role, they will have a new costume made. So it will be different, and because they use antique trims and antique laces and appliques on that costume, no two of them look the same. So it's difficult to get it to look exactly like one, because you maybe have only found one photograph of that version, or one photograph of the sleeve of that one, or one photograph of the back of that one. You sometimes have to mash them all together to make your own version of it, which is what I did. But you say his tailcoat, that would need to be exact, because it is the same with every actor as to how that looks. And I think with, you do get people misbehaving and taking photographs and video footage in theatres. That's a whole other conversation.
I was gonna say, do people do that?
Yes.
Does it help going to the theatre and watching the performances happen?
I mean, if you're there and someone's doing it, it infuriates the hell out of me, and I don't want to encourage people to do it. But there have been bootleg videos that I've watched to try and get better footage of the costume that I'm trying to make, which is not great. But, obviously with press photos for shows, they're limited with what costumes or what photos they let out, and they don't always let all of the costumes out. So you'll sometimes get a quick glimpse of something in a promo video for the show, or in the program, there'll maybe like one photograph of the costume. But, you don't get a full 360. So you'll get a view from the front of the stage, but oftentimes you're like, what does the back look like? What does it look like on the back of the trousers? What does the cape look like at the back? And sometimes it's hard to see those other images. Whereas, as you say, on TV, you get that recurring character, or in a film, they get a recurring costume that you get lots of chances to see, and you can rewind and play over and over again. It makes it a bit easier.
No, yeah, I was going to say, what I was getting at is more about if you could go to the theatre, is actually studying it in person, watching it with your own eyes. Does that help as well?
Yeah, but again, you can't pause it. Yeah. So you've got that one chance to see that costume. If it's a costume they only wear briefly, you've got that one chance. His Red Death costume, for example, in Phantom, he wears it for 96 seconds on stage. That's it, 96 seconds. So if you're trying to study it, that's the only amount of time you've got to look at that in person. And again, unless you're sitting in the front row, to get that detail picked up from it is hard.
Wow.
It's a lot easier than it used to be with photos, because I'm going to do it back in my day, early like 2010s when I started cosplaying, and I was doing like Scaramouche from We Will Rock You and like Elphaba from Wicked, and then I did Willy Wonka from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. You were very much relying off of like the theatre programme, like the brochure you could buy with the big glossy images, or like any promotion that the actors of the show did out and about, like photos from that, videos, all that sort of thing, like on YouTube or whatever. But now with like Instagram, I find it's now like a lot easier. So like when I went into making Berlin, first off, there was someone that ran like a whole Instagram account for 6 costume references and had all these Google Drives for each queen with all these close-up shots, and it was all broken down into like different years of the show, different actors. Like, it was an impeccable resource. It was brilliant. But then also now you can just see if you can find the actor's Instagram account, because sometimes they'll be posting like behind the scenes photos from the show, like them in their dressing room or them with other actors like before they go on stage. So that's like a really good way to get photos, as well as just to do a little bit of like Instagram stalking, or if they do like Instagram takeovers, or even just like, for me, working in theatre, even getting to know people. Like when I worked on Hamilton and we were doing the cast change there, in our break room, there was costumes like everywhere because it was a massive cast change, and there was all these Hamilton costumes just lined up on a rail, and I was a little bit cheeky, and I took photos of a bunch of them, and like the insides and the outsides, without touching them, because I'm never going to put my hands on the actual costumes in the theatres I work in. And I sent them to friends who were making costumes from Hamilton and going, here you go, here's what the construction looks like. So that's like a bit of a cheeky like insider way in. But when you would just like, We Will Rock You, I got into that, like 2007, all I was relying off of was like grainy YouTube videos and promotion pictures. So it's a little bit easier. And in terms of like people recording shows, like Matthew said, that can be a good resource. And I have really mixed feelings on bootlegs as someone working in theatre versus someone who's a fan in theatre, but that's like a whole complex like range of emotions we don't need to get into. But yeah, it's like, it is easier than it used to be, but it's still a pain in the arse, and the costumes in the show for like Matthew said, like 90 seconds, and you're like, there it is, there it goes. Oh, but I remember sitting when I was making Willy Wonka, I remember day seating for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and it was like their day seats were front row. And at the top of Act 2, Willy Wonka would come out of the conductor's pit, and he was coming out right in front of me. And I remember looking at the shade of purple of his coat going, oh, so it is more of a burgundy undertone than like a Cadbury undertone. Okay. I should have sat there with my 2 fabric samples and waited for them to like rise out of the MD pit and just kind of hold them up in the light and be like, is it this one? Is it that one? I didn't, but it was tempting.
I'm surprised you didn't go up on stage and say, could you just hold there for a second? Just want to check something.
I just really want to feel this fabric, so I'm not sure which it is. Let me rub this for a second. Oh wait, what? That's definitely going to be picked out as one of the quotes of the week.
And then security dragging you away. But it's for a cosplay. It's honest to God, it is. I'm not weird.
I mean, I am weird, but
no, that's very true.
Yeah.
Oh, I was alluding to this question earlier, but I get a sense that getting the detail right in a theatre cosplay is more important than I would say then, shall we say, a cosplay from TV, movie. Have I got that right? Or is it you put the same amount of effort into a theatre cosplay as you would to a TV film cosplay? Have I got that right?
There are varying degrees, aren't there? There are, even within film and TV cosplay, there are people who will want to get it as screen accurate as they can, and they won't settle for anything else. And whether that means they commission somebody else to make it, whether they're buying certain parts of it so that they're absolutely accurate. And I think it's the same in the theatre community, cosplay community as well. There are people who are happy that just wearing a black suit and a white mask is their version of Phantom, and that's great. I'm all for that as well. Unfortunately, I am one of those stickler people where I want it to look as close as I can to the original, or as close to a stage version of it. But yeah, there's varying degrees of how far people will go.
Yeah, and there's varying degree because sometimes some people are very like when you're focusing on what you make and you're like, oh, I can see all the flaws in my costume and oh, I want to do X, Y, Z with this to make this more accurate. But then all of a sudden, sometimes you get other people from like theatre community coming in and going, yeah, I like what you've done, but this bit isn't accurate. And it's like, where did I ask you? Like, wind your neck in. I didn't ask. Like, shush. If it's not accurate, I'm probably very aware of it. Like the tabs on the bottom of my Anne Boleyn bodice, technically not accurate at all. It's the original ones she had, which were flat. I've put studs in to vaguely look like the newest version, and when I update her, I will put the proper current style tabs on them, which are like more 3D kind of folded round. But at the moment, it's like, I'm very aware that's not accurate, but in terms of saving literal plastic, I'm leaving it for now.
Oh dear. I mean, Matthew's kind of already said this out loud, but I'll ask Beth this and we'll head back to Matthew. But how important is detailing in these theatre cosplays to you? Is it something that you want to get as close to 100%, or is it something that? Well, actually, to be fair, I think you already know the answer because you said you're on your third remake of the Anne Boleyn skirt.
I'm heading for it'll be the third full skirt I've gone. To be honest, it's not so much the detailing on that because the detailing is fine. It's the shape of the skirt because I tried to put spiral steel boning in it, which some of her skirts do have. But I think I've either done it kind of the wrong length or maybe the wrong place, and it doesn't have the nice, correct, quite shape to it. So it has got the curved shape, but the curves are pushing out because of the spiral steel in it, so they're a little bit too wide. And it's bothering me deep down in my soul. And if I didn't have all the overtime coming up at work that I did, I would 100% remake this in time for Musical Con. I don't, so I'm just going to have to live with it. But again, it kind of depends on like the costume. Like for my Heather's cosplays, I wasn't that bothered about being like super accurate. You can kind of get away with that with just kind of being the correct vibe. But for Berlin, for me, absolutely, it was like looking at pictures and going, okay, she's got, the top fabric on her skirt is all squares. Well, this square is 4x4 little squares cut out. This one's like 6x6. Oh, and they're offset by one square here. So that was a lot of like staring at pictures of skirt and counting. But I think it's worth it for the overall effect. It depends how crazy you want to drive yourself, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's hard because there will be certain fabrics or certain things that are on theatre costumes that you just can't get the originals of. The silk that the Phantom's black suit is made out of is something like £400 a yard to buy, especially made for it. So, generally people are not going to be buying that to make their tail suit, so it's not going to be an exact replica. And unlike his Chinese robe, where there are antique lace and antique trims, you're not going to get exactly the same as that. So it's just trying to find the closest you can in that style to make it look as close as you can. But yeah, I mean, there are people out there who will very nicely, he says sarcastically, point out to you where yours is slightly different to the one worn on stage. And again, luckily I wear a full skeleton mask, so I can pull whatever I like behind and they can't see it. But yeah, like Bethan said, it's like, who the hell asked you to criticize my costume when you're there in jeans and a t-shirt and I've put all this work into my costume? Yeah, I really I don't like people passing comments.
If I can be slightly catty, it's when people give you feedback on your sewing and they can't sew themselves and they don't make um their own costumes and they're like critiquing you in your costume and it's like, bitch, you buy yours. Come at me for my sewing. You can sew your own.
And there's nothing
Like
wrong with buying
that's
your
me being a
costume,
little bit
but
of a
yeah,
catty
just
mucker.
don't throw shade at people who've made theirs.
No, it does not. But if you're going to critique someone, yeah, if you're going to critique someone's costume but you can't sew your own, then like I don't know, step back a little bit.
I mean, yeah, I think we all know those people who would love to throw shade at someone just for the sake of it,
Mm.
and then go, and then you're going, but what? No, you don't do this yourself. Shut the fuck down. So I get that in photography. People get like to offer me like criticism, saying, "Okay, then come do it yourself. Come do it yourself." And then you go, "But I don't know." Yeah, shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. Jesus,
They're
this is
just
what
they're
I
like,
don't.
Eddie, have you tried shooting on an iPhone?
Oh, fuck off. Oh, God.
And also,
Jesus.
they don't know that person's journey. The reason their costume might not look screen accurate is because maybe they can't afford it. Maybe that is the best they could do with the tools that they had. Maybe they put their heart and soul into it and it didn't turn out well. Maybe they're not happy with themselves. So they don't need someone coming over to them and saying, "No, that's not right." So yeah, it's just, I wish people would kind
Oh,
of keep
God.
their constructive criticism to themselves.
100%, especially like because 6 costumes are so expensive. Like the PVC is anywhere between £14 a meter to 25.
Wow.
And I decided to invest in that because I wanted my costume to look as accurate as possible. And especially at musical con last year, I had people come up to me who like made their own Berlin costumes out of like different fabrics, and they still looked fantastic. They were still showing they loved the show and the character, and they were like, oh well, mine doesn't look as good as yours, or like a mum of a young girl was like, oh, ours doesn't look, and I was like, no, you've still done fantastically. You've still made that with love to show your love for the character, or you've made it with love for your daughter, and like that's like the most important thing. Like anytime someone's like, "Oh, but I couldn't," I'm like, "Shush, shush! Do not bring yourself down to compliment me in a way." I'm just there, like, "No, you've done fantastically with what you had, and I'm sure like you love it. Don't compare yourself to the others. Like comparison is the thief of joy." She says,
Oh,
eating a
wow.
Milky Way magic star.
Yeah. I like that. I like that phrase. I like that phrase.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a few times in this podcast between the two of you, and I've just got to ask it now. What the hell is musical con? What is it? Is it similar to regular Comic Con, or is it something like a complete different beast?
It's got its similarities and its differences. So the first one was last year, and it's basically a convention for fans of musicals. But it's kind of, I don't know how Matthew felt about this, but I felt it was definitely geared towards more people who want to become actors because there's a lot of really cool workshops with current theatre actors on like singing and dancing and like acting techniques. And there's like really, there's panels and there was some like a little shopping area with small businesses, which I really liked. But I definitely felt it was more geared towards young actors. Like kind of, there's like a very young audience there last year. That seem to be very like they want to become actors or dancers when they grow up. But I don't know if Matthew you felt kind of differently.
Yeah, there was so they had the main stage which had performances from various West End performers, past and present. There were various workshops which were being put on by West End performers, where there would be dancing workshops, singing workshops. All of those were going on in the same space as the main stage. There were also some talks going on around costuming and sets and theories behind shows as well, which is also going on in the same space. So it was a bit of an overload of stuff going on in the same space. But last year was the first year that it happened, so I think there was a lot to learn from it. But I think this year will be better.
It was at the XL last year, and for comparison, like MCM takes up obviously both sides of the XL centre at this point. I want to say musical con was maybe a section and a half. So you know how if you go to like the Excel Centre a lot, it's they're all labelled north side, south side, and then halls 1 to like 9 or whatever. I want to say it was maybe like a hall and a half. And I think my main grumble with it last year was the hall wasn't sectioned off where the main stage was. So the main stage was blasting music, and then the workshops were blasting music, and I wasn't feeling particularly well. But I know many of my friends who were of full health but sensitive hearing found it was just very hard to hear people and talk the whole time. I think the decibel reader I had on my phone registered it between 90 to 100 decibels at some point. So this year I'm definitely taking my earplugs, but I'm hoping they've taken that feedback on board and they're going to kind of separate off the main stage area. But it's in its infancy, and it's nice to have like a dedicated con for it in the UK, because like Broadway, America and Broadway have had Broadway con for quite a few years now. So it's nice to kind of get something for the West End equivalent.
No, that's cool. No, I've never been, so I can't really comment. And I just wanted to hear some other person's. I just want to hear about it, because I think because Beth, you asked me like last year, so, "Oh, you going? Can you come? I want some photos." I'm like, I'm half tempted. I was like kind of tempted, but I felt as much as like I go to Comic Con and I feel like a fraud anyway, just walking around going, "Oh, I think I know this anime. I think I know this franchise." So I'm just like, I'd be even more of a fraud if I'd go to the musical con and all that.
I think last year, because obviously it was the first year last year, and I think there were a lot of people who didn't know about cosplay, hadn't thought about cosplay, and then obviously saw that there were a number of us dressed in cosplay. There was a cosplay masquerade and a competition, but there were no great numbers of photographers there. There was not those scenes that you see at MCM when everyone's outside by the stairs in the green area, everyone having their photographs. That wasn't happening at all. So I do wonder whether this year, when people have seen that it happened last year and seen that it's obviously going to be happening again this year, whether there will be more. I think there will be more cosplayers, and I do wonder whether there'll be some photographers this year that might turn up.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's the weekend before MCM, and then the weekend before that at the XL is EGX. So I'm wondering if some people are just like, if they can only do one of them or maybe like a couple of them. Because what I've offered now is like, I got a DSLR this year to get back into my photography hobby. Am I a particularly good photographer? I can put you in focus. What I've offered is like, I'll take photos of like people who want a photo of their cosplay, but I'm like, the most editing this will have will be a crop on it. I don't know any photo editing software. If you just want like a nice photo of your costume, especially like, I know there's a big Phantom group, there's a big Les Mis cosplay group, all that sort of thing. If you guys want photos pretend to throttle each other, like, I'll take them. But it's not going to be a like proper cosplay photographer standard. I'm not going to masquerade here as an actual cosplay photographer. But I think while there's a lack of normal cosplay talks going, I think we've all just got to pick a camera and point it at each other.
Oh dear, I don't know if I'm free that weekend anyway, so I can't even commit myself. We'll
just bully you, be like, Eddie.
No, I'm going to find this cloth come behind me. Does it smell like chloroform? And I hear Bethan's voice.
And then you just hear dan 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 dan.
I'm like, how's there a camera in my hand? Why am I taking photos? Hang on, these are all my. This is my camera.
I don't even know this franchise.
Oh dear! Oh no! Oh god!
As a disclaimer, we're absolutely not going to be kidnapping Eddie and forcing him to work.
No, that's your alibi.
For any FBI that are listening,
I was going to say this is your alibi. So if I do get chloroform kidnapped, that you go, I was only joking on the podcast.
You can't prove it. It was someone else dressed in green PVC.
That'd be the biggest giveaway, that you're wearing your own crime outfit from the musical con. Jesus Christ. Oh, God. You mentioned that you can actually meet the actors there and all that. have you actually met the person that plays Anne Boleyn, and have they gone? And again, for you, Matthew, the guy that does. I don't know the guy's name. I just want to say the Phantom.
Yeah.
Good, good. Oh,
Is
phew.
he
This is what I mean by
called
being
Eric? Is he actually called
Is it-
Eric, or is that him?
Erica.
Eric.
Eric?
Oh, Eric.
Is
Sorry.
is that actually his name, or is that kind of fandom
So
canon?
Eric is his name in the actual original novel, Gaston Leroux novel, a French book. His name is Eric. But in the West End Broadway production, his name is never mentioned. He's just called the Phantom or the Opera Ghost. So yeah, they never call him Eric.
Okay, cool. Anyway, so between the two, or any other, the actors from theatre, and you're wearing their costume that relates to that, have they ever seen and gone, oh my god, that is so cool, I love the craftsmanship? Oh, and do they see like the love and devotion that you put to that character?
Yes. So last year at Musical Con, Ben Foster, who was a previous Phantom in the West End, he's not anymore, he's moved on to other things. But he was doing a photograph meet and greet, and I booked in to meet him, and I was wearing my Chinese robe Phantom costume, and he could see me in the line waiting, and he did someone's photo, and he kind of looked up, and I just saw his eyes go wide and just stare at me. I felt sorry for the people in front of me because he was like a bit distracted trying to do their photos because he kept looking at me. And my fiance got all these lovely kind of cheeky, candid shots of when I walked over him and he was just like gobsmacked at my costume. And he said, well, where did you get that? And I was like, made it. He's like, fuck off. And I was like, no, seriously, I made it. Your mask looks like mine did. And I was like, well, the mask I didn't make, I purchased that. But yeah, he was amazing. He's there this year as well, so I'm meeting him, but in my other Phantom costume, so to try and distract him. But yeah, normally I would stage door at the theatre, and I usually meet all of the Phantoms when I go and see the show. I will hang out the stage door afterwards just to kind of see the Phantom and say hello and get a selfie. But I've never gone to see the show in full costume, so I don't get to see the Phantoms then dressed in costume. So it is a great opportunity at Musical Con for those West End performers to kind of see you and appreciate the work you put in supporting the work that they do.
Back in day before I worked in theatre, I realise I'm making quite a bit. So back in day before I worked in theatre, I would have done that. I would take Musical Con, and I would have used that opportunity to go meet the actors in that costume, or even like if the designers are there or whatever. But now I have to walk that fine line of, I professionally work in the West End, and I have done for over 6 years now, and I've done kind of 3 big musicals, and the industry is very incestuous in terms of like everyone knows everyone, but also like various actors will always end up on various shows. I don't want to cross that line between I'm a fan of this show and this character in this costume, and because there's a different way you will treat a fan of the show versus like your colleague. So I don't want to go up to them at Musical Con and be like, oh my god, hey, like I'm Anne Boleyn, and then 6 months later they come to work in the show I'm in. And the thing is, the chance of me getting recognised out of costume, I don't know. I think I look quite different, but some people, I know last year when I went as Boleyn, there was an actor I knew who was in Wicked, and she recognised me. And at the time, she was dating a stage technician that I knew, and texted him about it. And then he went into the shop where my boyfriend works and was like, "Oh, I hear Bethan's at Musical Con." Like and I was still there. That's how like incestuous the industry is. So I'm trying to not cross that line between I'm a fan of the show, but also I am a professional lighting technician in this industry, and I want to be taken seriously within that, and I don't want them going, "Oh yeah, she's here. Oh, is she a bit of a fangirl?" Like I want them to feel comfortable around me. So at the moment, no. And one of the previous Boleyns I did work with before she was Boleyn, she was in Everybody's Talking About Jamie, which is the first musical I worked on. So I vaguely knew her from that, and I think she was at Musical Con last year, but there was no way in fucking hell I was going near her because I'm like, I don't want to make this weird between us. So it's funny, I wasn't going to go this year, and then I've decided to because there's a lot of my friends going and I want to see them. And interesting, one of the stage technicians at work is saying she's going, and this is the second ever con she's been to. The other one that was one of the Sherlock conventions, which is a hell of a swap. And she's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go. And hilariously, we work on Les Mis, and she's booked to see the panel of like the composer of Les Mis talking about the show. And I'm like, that dude was just in our auditorium for a solid week. You could have gone out and asked him questions then while you were earning the money instead of paying him for it. So yeah, I'm trying to like tread that line between fan and theatre professional to cut down like my 500,000 word essay short is the answer. So I won't be no, and I might be trying to hide in the other direction, she says, while dressed like a giant green bit of plastic. I would try to subtly go the other way.
A simple no would have done better.
I know, but unfortunately I do suffer from verbal diarrhea, and it's a real pain. So
which works for the podcast, but for different reasons.
But like, why say one word when I could say about 5,000? Over-explain myself, go off on about 4 different tangents, and then come back to the point about 20 minutes later. It gives any more to edit out. It's great fun.
Oh God! Tell John, like you think I actually edit these podcasts? No,
That's true.
No. But to be fair, I'm like that. I sometimes start a conversation, go one way, go onto a different train track, find out I'm actually in a blimp, flying across the world, get back onto the train, but actually found out I'm not the train driver, I'm a passenger. So I'm making my way to the train, and then find out I'm in a car actually, not on a train. I'm looking at the train, going, "How did I end up here?" I know what you feel like, Beth. I end up doing that as well.
I really should get that some sort of like neurodivergent assessment, but hey, like...
Oh God, don't, because I don't need to know more stuff about me I didn't already know. Oh God, sometimes ignorance is bliss.
I don't really need the NHS to look at me and go, yeah, we can tell you've been off for 5 years. Why do that when I can just be aggravating on the internet instead? My whole brand.
Oh dear Lord! What was I going to say? So we're dangerously running. We are dangerously running out of time on the podcast. Yes, sometimes I've got a phrase in my head and I want to get that phrase out properly, and because I can't get it out properly, it just comes out as blah 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 blah. So I just want to ask this last question, and basically, if there's one advice you'd give to someone who wanted to do a theatre-based cosplay, or to yourself right at the beginning, what would that advice be?
Oh, I would probably say, if you're just starting out, start with something simpler.
Absolutely.
Because you don't have to go full out first around. There are lots of cosplays from many musicals out there that you don't need to be a great sewer for. You can purchase items and recreate those costumes or your own versions of those costumes. So don't think that you need to have a sewing machine and all the skills and an endless bank account and patient partner and family. And just, start simple.
Definitely start with simple costumes, but also...
Oh my God, your audio quality is so good now.
I know, it's because I changed back to my old headset because my phone charged up. So start simple. Look for online communities. Look for people that have done the costume before. Like research. I run a theatre Facebook group for musical theatre cosplayers where people can come ask questions. I know there's ones for specific shows you can pop into and ask. Also, find people that have made the costume or have done the costume that you want to do, and you can always ask them questions. But I would say from a pet peeve perspective, at least do some basic research before asking someone, because the amount of times I will always answer questions on my Berlin cosplay, 100%, but I always answer the same questions and it's always stuff that is actually quite easily, you could Google it, but I'm like, you know what, if you're 15, I'm not going to expect you to do that. But yeah, just online communities are a great source of, a great resource to kind of start from. Look for people that have done it before or who are into the same thing as you to help out.
It's really weird. Somehow the audio for when you talk about the group you set up went blank. Jeez. It's not like it went beep. Who knows? Oh, well, there'll be a huge mystery what that was about. I'm joking.
Yeah. The whole maybe 700 people that are in there. But
Oh, dear me. No, thank you very much for being on this podcast. I think I will end it now.
Eddie, you've got so much to live for. Don't do
I
it.
do. Oh God, you have no idea, or how little you don't know. No, seriously, thank you very much for being on the podcast. It's been quite enjoyable to listen. How there else?
Has it?
Well.
Timothy, please.
Okay, just to let the listeners know, we've had quite a few technical difficulties for that whole podcast. Literally, for every so often, there's this growling noise, this feedback noise, and we don't know how that was caused. And I'm going, oh, this is going to be fun editing this, and so this is going to be a technical issue for me.
I don't know why you keep inviting me on, given that half the time my audio just craps out partway through.
Yeah, true, but at least now we know we can do it this way round.
Yeah.
And
I'll just make sure my phone's charged beforehand now. I know I can actually use it.
Yeah, Jesus.
Well, for years you couldn't actually use this on mobile.
I know, but now there is a way. Anyway, it's not my fault. Talk to the people that make this. Anyway, Betha, where can they find you on the social media? Should they want to geek out to the theatres to you or just bitch at you?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to cyberbully me, you can find you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm not calling it X. The only thing I would dead name is Twitter, and like I'd say TikTok. I don't really use that much, but it's all What's Cosplay. I'm on there under the same name, and if it looks like there's a lot of Disney and theatre and screaming, that's me.
Do you want to also promote your group again, just to make it a little clearer?
So on Facebook, we're musical theatre cosplayers, and it's not like a massively active group, but we're there if you've got questions or you just want to share your theatre cosplays.
Fantastic. Matthew, where can they find you on the social media?
I am on Instagram and I do have I can't remember the name of it because I don't use it very often. TikTok. But yeah, Journey to the Lair, all one word. That's the best place. Instagram would be the best place. That's the place I'm most active and will respond to any messages and chat to people.
Fantastic. Okay, nice to know there are other mediums and you just don't give a shit about it. Okay, cool. All right, cool. If anyone needs to find me on the social medias, I am active on all of them. On Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Oh no, I say all of them. No, Vero, I'm on it, but I'm not using that.
What the fuck's a Vero?
Oh, don't. Let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about that. But those are that I am active on. I'm there. If you go to foodandcosplay.org/links, that's where you'll find all my social media links there. So it's easy to go pick and choose which one you want to get to. If you go to foodandcosplay.org, I share daily cosplay photo. That's probably what I'm using it now for. And also past podcasts, like descriptions and all that. But talking about past podcasts, if you go to foodandcosplay.org/podcast, you'll find previously recorded podcasts I've recorded with this gobshite. Sorry, Bethan, and other guests with other topics. If you go to patreon.com/foodandcosplay, you'll hear podcast extra where I'll be bringing these two into my podcast extra, and we'll be talking more about the theatre. We'll be talking about probably their favourite theatre show they've been to, seen, or ones they're going to see in the future. Or maybe we actually haven't mentioned in the main podcast, but their favourite cosplay, their favourite theatre cosplay. So if you want to hear those answers, come to the podcast extra on patreon.com/foodandcosplay. Please.
Or if you want it for free, you can just DM us and we'll tell you.
No! Stop circumventing me! Oh God! And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye, and they're going to say goodbye. So bye, guys.
Bye.
What's this cough coming behind me?